Welcome back everybody to linuxacademy.com. My name is Terry, and in today's course we continue our preparation for the Linux Foundation Certified System Administrator exam. So what we're going to take a look at now is we're going to take a look at user management. Now, user management, there's two ways to create and delete user accounts. There is the universal way that has been in place since the beginning of any Nix-like operating system called user add. So let's start with that. So the user add command is as simple as it can be. It is user add, and then in the case of creating a home directory for use, which we'll still have to do manually, but we want to designate a home directory for that particular user. We're going to say, for example, user test user, and then the account that we want to create is called test user. So we've now created the test user account, and if we cat etc group, we'll see that the last entry should be test user, because when you create a user, you remember you have a default group that is named the same as the user that every user is a member of, that each user is a member of their own group. Now I have to set a password for that user, for example, so test user, and the password I type twice to verify. And now I could log in as that user, but the user doesn't have a directory that in the home directory. Even though I designated that I wanted the test user directory to be specifically for the test user account, I actually have to create it as the root user. So I have to make the directory test user, and then I'm going to change the owner of the test user to test user the user and test user the group for test user. Now that that is done, then when I log in as the test user, I will have access to my home directory. So let's exit out of my root account. We'll su to the test user account using the password that we just created. And when we do password or pwd, it will tell us we're in the home test user directory, but you'll see all we have is a basic prompt. Now what I could do is I could go to the etc skeleton directory, and I could copy the profile, the bash profile, the bash rc files here, and then I could have an environment that's set up exactly like my other users. And the reason this is done this way is so that it's compatible with, it's most compatible with other Nix-like operating systems regardless of the version. Now modern operating systems, including CentOS and Red Hat, and Debian and Ubuntu started this, have a utility called add user rather than user add that allows you to go through, and it gives you a lot more information about how your user is created than the user add command. So let's take a look at that. So if we add user, let's say test user 1, then it's going to tell us that it's adding the user test user 1. It's creating a group with the GID of 1006. The test user 1 UID of 1003 is added to the group test user 1. It automatically created our home directory, and it copied all the files from etc skel, the skeleton directory, and it's prompting us for a password, which we have to enter twice. And then we're going to say that this is test user 1. The room number, this still has its roots in older versions of Unix, which were mostly run in universities, so there was generally associated room numbers with them. So 555-1212 is the work phone, no home phone, no other, and yes, my information is complete. Now, when we look at the home directory, you'll see that the test user 1, with all its appropriate permissions, has already been created. We don't have to do that manually. And all of the files that come from the skeleton profile for every user, .bash logout, bash rc, and .profile, are already there. Since I've already done all those commands from within the add user, then all I have to do now is su-test user 1 and pass in the password that I was given before, and you'll see my prompt looks the same, all of my files are the same, I'm in the home directory that I was assigned, and it was all done in one fell swoop. Now when I want to remove a user, whether it was created with user add or add user, I just have to figure out what user that I want to remove. So If I want to remove a user, I can do a user del for user delete. And then I pass in the username that I want to remove. So in this case, test 11, for example. Now when I do a listing here, you'll see, oh, test 11, the home directory, now has a owned by user ID of 1004 and a group ID of 1007. And if I cat out my Etsy group directory and grep for test 11, that has actually been removed. So it actually deleted all vestiges of the test 11 user except for the directory itself, which I now have to do manually. However, if I want to do that automatically, I use user delete with a -r, and then I can say, hey, just delete test user 1. It's looking for a spool file, which there was no mail spool file associated for. So you can see that it's doing already more than just the user delete, because it's looking for all remnants of that particular user. And the test user 1 directory and all of its contents have also been deleted. The test user 1 directory and all of its contents have been deleted. So for creating user accounts, if you're using older systems, you're going to have to use the user add command, and you've got some manual steps that you'll have to take in order to support and manage that particular user account, including manually copying files over to a created directory that you've assigned appropriate group and ownership to. If you happen to be lucky enough to be using modern distributions, you can use user add, which will prompt you for everything that you need. And remember, when you're removing users, to pass in the -r command so that you remove all of their directory. So just like add user, user delete -r will remove all remnants of that particular user. So for local account management, adding and deleting users, that's all there is to it. My name is Terry for Linux Academy.